Okay, so welcome to Digital Tools for Architects. This used to be Digital Tools for Architects 2, but we renamed the first class to be Digital Tools for Designers, so now this is just Digital Tools for Architects. Go figure. This is Archi 136. Since your name was on the roll sheet, I assume you're in the right place. That's a good thing. And this is the fall of 2015. Shockingly, I don't know how that happened. Hope you all had a good summer. Welcome back. Should be a fun ride. Anyway, so a little bit about me. There's a lot of familiar faces, so I'm sorry if I bore you, but there are people who have never seen me before, so I'm going to give you some background about myself. My name is Grant Adams. I'm an associate professor of architecture here at DVC, which basically means that I'm here 2 days a week. So if you try to find me on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, or Friday, I won't be here. So Monday and Wednesday, I'm here all day. I get here about 6, I leave about 5. So if you need me, find me then. I have a class right before this one, which is the 135 class. So I'll be in that class. As the semester goes on, if you guys trickle in at the end of that class, I have no problem with you taking over computers. Likewise, if you want to work in the back doing your own projects at the same time in this room, that's perfectly fine with me. Not a problem at all. My email is gadams@dvc.edu. You're welcome to email me whenever. I also give you my phone number. You can text me if you get stuck with something or whatever. It's there. It's on the website, etc. My office hours are right after this class from 2 to 3. If you need to meet me at a different time, we can try to arrange it. Hopefully it's a Monday or a Wednesday because those are the days that I'm here. A little bit more about myself. I have an undergraduate degree from Berkeley. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Architecture. Finished that in 2004, and then I got my master's. So I have a master in architecture from Berkeley as well, which is a bit of a rare combination because it's rare to do both schools together, but we could talk about that at some point if you want. I got that in 2007, and at that point, there was an email that went out right when I was graduating where they were offering a position to teach the 135 class here at DVC. And I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, and I really liked teaching. I was a grad student instructor the whole time I was in grad school, really liked it. Said, okay, I'll sign on to take this. At that point, 135 had just been like a trial class for a couple semesters. It really wasn't well formulated. I got hired for that and have taught it for 9 years. And then in the process, convinced Daniel that it was a really good idea to have a Rhino class, which took a lot of encouraging thoughts and student petitions and whatever, but we finally got it, and guess what? Now it's offered every semester. So it used to be like a spring late start class that was barely put together. Now it's offered every semester, which I think is great. This is a really fun class. You'll learn a lot. It's a great preparatory class for Architecture 220, so kind of the next level up. But it's also really good for anything that you're moving on in terms of modeling and whatever. If you're not directly in architectural design and are instead going to do an industrial design or product design, Rhino is still really good. V-Ray is fantastic for the renderings, so you still get an awful lot out of it. So that's a little bit of my background. There is a website for this class. It's digitaltoolsforarchitects.com. If you've been in one of my classes before, you already have a registration. In all likelihood, you'll use the same one that you did last time for this class. Nothing new. In fact, today will be an extraordinarily easy day for you, but such is life. Okay. Yeah. All of the exercises and assignments are going to be posted on that website. All the important course information will be there. A copy of the syllabus is there. Basically, anything you could need will be on it. The course calendar will be kept on it. It's also something that you could subscribe to into your own calendar. So I have a feed for you. It'll come in. It'll tell you when things are due, what lectures I'm giving, what we're doing. If we change something, I'll change it on the calendar, etc. I also post a number of tutorials and videos that walk you through certain things that we're doing. I try to post all my lectures, so you have a lot of resources that are there and available to you as well. And we will also use it to comment on other students' work. And so those of you that have been in my other class know that you got used to commenting all the time. This is not quite as intensive of commenting as the 135 is, because there's a lot of things like today is a good example where I'm scripting, this is what you're going to make today because we're trying to learn a certain set of Rhino skills. And so everybody's is going to look exactly the same. So there's not a point in commenting. So I will let you know when you need to comment. So you'll have fewer comments, but it'll be obvious when it happens. So intermixed, I'm going to throw some renderings and some different things up there just so that you could see some of the potential in Rhino. The course schedule, we start at 11, we go to 11:50 for lab. That's a very rough time. Sometimes with the demonstrations that I'm doing, it'll take longer than that. Sometimes with the demonstrations I'm doing, it'll take less time than that. It just depends on what I'm going through and what I'm trying to talk about. Toward the end of the semester, when we do some of the more challenging renderings, we might do a split lecture where I'll lecture for the first 15 or 20 minutes of class, then we'll let a render run, and then I'll come back and lecture about it a little later on. So it's a little bit in flex, but in general, it's about an hour of lecture, and then we have 2 hours of lab from 12 to 1:50. And most of what you'll be able to do in this class will be done in the lab. Almost everything can be done during class in this class. There'll be a few assignments where you need a little bit of extra outside time. We'll have one laser cutting assignment where you actually make a 3D model that takes a little bit of work outside of class. For the most part, it's inside class. Office hours are Monday, Wednesday, 2 to 3. If you need to meet me some other time, by all means make an appointment. I'm here for you. I want to talk to you. If you need help, that's what I'm here for. So course description, you guys can read this when you have time. It basically means that it's about Rhino and V-Ray. So we have two primary software packages that we're going to cover. The big one is Rhino. We'll be using Rhino 5 in this class. It's going to do all of the 3D modeling that we're going to make. It's very powerful. How many people have used SketchUp before? Okay? I'm going to try to convert every single one of you to never wanting to use SketchUp ever again. Okay? How many people hate SketchUp right now? A few of you. I already got you guys. That's good. So to me, Rhino is really the best 3D modeling program out there. It's really, really good at what it does. Anybody used AutoCAD before? Okay. Those of you that have used AutoCAD before, Rhino will feel totally natural. The way that I would like to refer to Rhino is it's what AutoCAD should be in 3D. If Autodesk, I'm shocked that Autodesk has a bottom. But it's a fantastic program. V-Ray is a rendering plugin that goes on top of Rhino. So we'll do all the modeling stuff in Rhino, and then we'll use this plugin to do the actual renderings. That's what does the photorealistic stuff, the skies, and all of that. V-Ray is what does the rendering. V-Ray is available for a variety of software packages. So V-Ray, they make a plugin for SketchUp. V-Ray makes a plugin for Maya. V-Ray makes a plugin for 3D Studio. So there's a lot of different plugins out there. If you learn V-Ray for Rhino, that knowledge is relatively applicable to V-Ray for anything else. So we're focused on V-Ray and Rhino. Question? Yeah, is there a student version of Rhino that we can download? There is not a free student version. There's a free Mac Rhino version that's a beta that is pretty lousy. There is a student version that's a paid student version of Rhino, and I think it's $50 or $100. So it's a little on the expensive side. But it will give you a full-fledged working Rhino installation. V-Ray is much more challenging. I've had students get student versions. It's difficult to install. It's difficult to work with. It's kind of annoying. So what I would recommend is not worrying about V-Ray on your home computer, but instead, if you can do Rhino and do modeling at home, that's fantastic. Come in here and do the renderings in here. We will use something called a network render, where we'll hook 90 to 120 of the lab computers here together to do your renderings. So even if you had V-Ray at home, it's going to take so much longer to do it that you're probably going to want to do the renderings in here in lab anyway, because we can use a lot more horsepower. That's something I've worked very, very hard with the department to get with all these computers. And it can make a huge difference. So instead of having your one computer with 4 threads rendering, we might have 20 computers, each with 4 to 8 threads rendering. It's going to go a lot faster. So there is a required textbook for the class. It's the Digital Tools for Architects Handbook. Those of you that have taken 135 before, use the same book. Right? Even if it's an older book, most of the stuff is the same. Okay? It's available from an online publisher, lulu.com. Be sure to Google Lulu coupon codes. Because there's usually some kind of a free shipping or 20% off or something like that you can find. It'll save you a little money. Do bring it with you to class every day. There is a bunch of, this will cover 135, so if you haven't taken 135, you buy it once. But inside here, there's a huge section in Rhino that walks through a bunch of commands. And so if you get lost, and then there's another whole section on V-Ray with a bunch of specifics about V-Ray. V-Ray can be a little challenging because there's a lot of very quirky little options. And when we get into that, you'll want to take notes as we go through certain options to help clarify what's going on in your mind so that you can remember when you go back to do it. So, grading, the all-important question that everybody wants to know about. There is no midterm, there is no final exam for the class. We do a final project where you'll do 3 large renderings, and we'll post them up on the walls at the end. There isn't a formal review, there won't be reviewers that come, but it's kind of a gallery. And I bring donuts that day, it's fun, right? And we all look at what everybody's done. I also bind them into a big 11 by 17 booklet at the end so that you can go back and see what other people's renderings turned out and that sort of thing. Okay? Your grade is primarily based on your lab exercises, which are worth 20%, your assignments, which are worth 40%, your final project, which is worth 30%, and your participation, which is worth 10%. And I'll go into what each of these mean in a second. Okay? I try very hard in this class to have it be as consistent of a workload as possible. It's very realistic to take it at the same time as you're taking 220, 121, any of the big studio classes. So most of what happens you'll do in class. And so that's my goal. Okay? Lab exercises. Lab exercises collectively, all of them are worth 20% of your overall grade. That equates out to being 2.7% each or something like that. The exercises are designed to be completed in the lab portion of the class, and they focus on building your fundamental skills. Right? Rhino's a little bit different because in the beginning we'll spend a lot of time, like, I'll give you something and I'll walk you through how to model it. We'll learn certain tools. We'll learn how to sweep a curve across a set of rails. Like, there's very specific things that you have to learn. Rhino is a giant piece of software. We could spend semesters and semesters learning how to model intricate things. What I've done is I've distilled it down into these are the tools that I think are most important. And we cover those tools starting with the most important first. And then as you start to model, we'll go away from a scripted, this is what you're modeling, to you design something and you model it, and when you have a question of how do I do this, we sit down and we go through it. Because everybody has different needs and desires, and you'll learn a lot once you start trying to create your own stuff. So the beginning is very scripted. These are the things we're doing. Today's a perfect example. We'll do exercise 201 today. It's very step by step. This is what we're doing. You follow it along, you get the shape at the end. Right? And we'll do that for a while, and then we'll start to branch out, and you'll have a lot more flexibility. Okay? Generally, the exercises are going to be due at the end of the lab period, so they'll be due by 1:50 today. If you're here and you work on it and you didn't quite finish, still post it, you'll still get credit. They're graded on a pass, not pass system, so you do it, you get credit. You don't do it, you don't get credit. Right? So it's a pretty easy thing. It's a really good way of building up your grade. You do all the exercises, you got 20% of your grade is total solid A, right? So that's what we like. Assignments are a little bit larger. They're going to require some work outside of class. You can do the work in this lab. If there's a class going on in this lab, you can do the work in 116, which is across the way, that computer lab, or you can do the work in 124. So there's 3 different labs that all have Rhino and V-Ray installed, or are supposed to have Rhino and V-Ray. Okay? When we get to network rendering, you can do it on any of the machines. Right? The machines in this lab and 116 tend to be the nicest machines, though I've heard that we're going to get brand new machines in 124. So things snowball eventually. Maybe we'll get brand new machines. I don't know. They're worth 40% of your overall grade. You're graded not only on the skills that you used, right, but you're also graded on what do they look like. What is your end product? Right? The first assignment, we're going to design and build a table and a chair. Or a table and several chairs, depending on what you want. You'll be graded on how they turn out, you know, the skills that you use, did you apply textures and that sort of thing. But you'll also be graded on the finer details. What does the chair actually look like? You know, is it an attractive chair? Does it have the texture maps applied correctly? Are the scales of the material right? Those kinds of things, right? And we'll talk about details as we go along, okay? You can also elect to improve your grades if you were unhappy. Let's say you turned in the table and the chair and you got a C and you really wanted an A. You can remodel it, do a new one, and resubmit it before the end of the semester. It's due on the last day of the semester. At that point, I will look at it as if I never saw your first one, right? And I'll grade it again. So your grade could go up, your grade could go down. Okay? You can do that once for each assignment. So you do assignment 201, you didn't like the outcome, you can regrade. You can do a regrade. You did assignment 202, you didn't like it, you can do a regrade. But you can only do one regrade for each assignment. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah. Score less on the regrade, does that say our score?
Yep. The regrade is a fresh start, fresh look. If it goes down, it goes down. Right? To me, that's fair. If I'm going to regrade it, it's fair to have a fresh look. Generally speaking, the grades always go up. But if you didn't do a good job, it would go down. So course participation, right? After a lot of the exercises and definitely after each assignment, you'll be required to write comments for your fellow students, 3 comments for each one that is required. Okay? And the idea here is that you're not going to say, I like it because it's pretty, right? Or, you know, your colors are so attractive or whatever. I really want you to get into, I think the way that you modeled the materials in this particular chair accentuate the design of the chair and or whatever. Or, you know, I think your texture mapping on the metal isn't quite right, but your texture mapping on the wood is really good. I would spend a little more time with the texture mapping of the metal. Or whatever it is. Specific quality comments. Okay? The advantage of these quality comments, right, is that 1, you get feedback on everything that you do, which is great. You should get three comments from on each of your, at least 3 on each of your assignments. But you also have to learn how to critique somebody and how to give them positive, good feedback, right? I guess I shouldn't say positive. It can be critical or negative feedback, but you're giving them articulated, well thought out suggestions. Does that make sense? Right? And it's important to be able to frame those up in your mind. So it's part of your 10% participation grade for the class. So materials. You have to have a USB flash drive. How many people have never taken a computer class in the ET buildings? Okay, a few of you. Some of you from this morning, you already heard me ramble on about this. Okay, these computers are frozen, which is how we prohibit changes and viruses and stuff from spreading, which means that if the computer shuts down, everything on it goes away. So you don't want to ever rely on a folder on the desktop and I save my stuff, because if the power goes out or whatever, your stuff's gone. Okay? So you need to have a flash drive. The flash drive for this class, I highly, highly recommend at least a 32 gigabyte flash drive. Right? If you want to go a little bigger, that's even better. Right? You'll survive with a 32 gig. If it's less than that, chances are you're going to buy a second drive and then you're going to be managing 2 drives. Okay? The other thing is which port you plug it in on the computer matters, because V-Ray associates materials. So get used to right now when you plug in your USB, plug it in the same. There's 4 across the front of each of these computers, right? Plug it in the same one every time. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I'm just telling you that ahead of time, right? So pick one and always plug it in that one, okay? It'll save you. You can still recover and you can eject it and change which one and figure it out, but it's just easier if you just get in the habit of doing it, okay?
Does it matter which computer?
No, generally they're okay across the computers. Most of you are creatures of habit, and you'll end up sitting in the same seat the rest of the semester. It's just the way it works. I don't know. Go figure, right? The other thing is on that drive, you're going to have your big Rhino files, but you're also probably going to have a big archive of materials that you're going to be using. And so those materials are part of why I'm asking you to have such a big flash drive, because you're going to be storing a lot of stuff, okay? Please be careful to safeguard your flash drive, right? I tell both of my classes this in the very beginning. Right? If you come to me because you left your flash drive in the lab and somebody stole it, if you come to me because it was in your jeans pocket and went through the wash, which has happened to mine several times, if whatever, right? If you sit in the chair and break it off in the machine, that happened to a student one time, right? Any of those things, if you come to me and say, oh my God, this happened, I'm going to say, not my problem, I'm sorry, too bad, right? There's no extra time, there's none of that stuff. You manage your flash drive, you keep it safe, right? And I just like to lay that out in the beginning. It's your responsibility, okay? If you want help on how to back it up or whatever, the next lecture in my other class, I'm going to talk extensively about how you back things up and whatever. You can watch the lecture and we can go through it, okay? If you have specific questions, you know, we can of course talk about it, okay? You will also, at a certain point in the semester, probably need some physical modeling. We're going to make a topographic model. Means you'll have to go buy some cardboard, you probably need a little glue, maybe a knife, that kind of thing. Most of you already have that stuff. If you don't, you can borrow it from a friend. or borrow from somebody else in the lab. It's not that bad. It shouldn't cost that much. Sorry. Come on. Really? There we go. So it shouldn't be too bad. Okay? We have to go through these course guidelines. It's just more and more stuff, but I have to go through it. If you miss 2 or more weeks of class, right, I can withdraw you. I can give you an F. It shouldn't be a big surprise. Don't miss the class. Okay? If you're going to not be here at class, please text me, right, ahead of time, or send me an email and say I'm not going to be there. It just helps because I won't wait around for you to show up, right? I don't like to start lecture if I don't have the bulk of the people here because I don't like to have to repeat myself. So just let me know that you're not going to be here, right? It's professional courtesy, right? If you don't complete your assignments, chances are you're not going to do very well in the class, right? So you might get dropped or you might get an F. Such is life, okay? Assignment due dates are always going to be announced in class, right? They're due at the start of lecture, right? So if we had an assignment due next Monday, right, you'd have to turn it in before 11 next Monday, okay? And I will warn you ahead of time that my class before is going to be posting all of their exercises right before 11, right, because they're finishing their class. So if you wait until 10:59 to post your assignment, right, there's going to be a lot of web traffic and whatever, and you might not get it turned in. So turn it in a little bit before, turn it in the night before, right? Save yourself the headache, okay? Exercises are going to be due at the end of class, so it's at 1:50 today. You'll turn in your exercises. Sometimes you'll be done a little bit early. That's okay. There is, especially in this class, there's generally always something else to be doing or something else to be working on, something else to be prepping for, working on your assignment, that kind of thing. If you don't have anything for this class, work on one of your other classes. How many people are in 220 right now? Nobody's in 220? One of you? Okay. You will always have something to do. So if you, it's Architecture 220. It's the second studio class. How many people are in 121 right now? No studios? One? Okay. You'll have something to do always too, right? Well, maybe you're in English class and you can work on your paper or something, right? Consider working on something else. Okay. One other thing that I do want to point out while we're moving forward, this is a college class, right? My guess is a lot of you have already taken college classes before. By the time you get here, you generally have. Because of that, right, treat it as such. You should want to be here. That's the cool thing about college. You don't, when you're in high school, you have to be there, right? Now you're in college, you should want to be here, right? That's the fun part about it. I will do my very best to make this class as exciting and interesting as I possibly can. Obviously, I think it's exciting and interesting, but I'll try to make that for you as well. So think of it that way. Think of it as a place you want to be, something that you want to be doing, and that makes life a lot easier, right? If you need to get up and go to the bathroom, just go to the bathroom. You don't need to tell me that you're going to go. Okay. Likewise, this is a really awkward time for class. It starts at 11. It ends at 2. What happens in the middle of that? Lunch. You're going to be hungry, right? So I'm not going to make you stay here and, Eric, you left. I'm going to mark you down, right? No. Look, you got to eat, right? A lot of you have class right after this too. Okay, so take a little bit of time, go outside, eat, right? Don't eat in the lab. It's a little awkward, on the computers and that sort of thing. Go outside and eat, but take a break. It's okay, right? Generally, there'll be a break between the lecture and the lab portion of the class, 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll start on the next section. And that'll help a little bit because you can go use that time. But if you want to go get a cup of coffee or a Pepsi or whatever, go do it, right? It's a college class. The other thing I will say about it being a college class is don't rely on me to withdraw you from the class, right? A couple of you will probably vanish into the ether about halfway through the semester and we'll never see you again, right? I don't know where you go, but you go somewhere, right? If you're one of those people, withdraw yourself from the class, right? Don't make it my responsibility to do it. You do it, okay? It would be my preference, and I know this is a bit of a doom and gloom, right? It would actually be my preference to just fail you, right, at the end of the semester rather than withdraw you, because it's college class. You're in charge of your own destiny, right? When you go on to Berkeley or Cal Poly or whatever, assuming you're going that route, there is not going to be anybody that's going to hold your hand, right? You're in it for yourself, so treat it as such. Anyway, enough doom and gloom, right? This class is it's not as impacted as my other class, so I'm kind of happy. It gives me more one-on-one time with each of you. Right? I want to spend as much time as I can with each one of you doing stuff, right? Because that's how you learn. I want you to ask me questions. That's the best way that we can we can conduct a class. That being said, it takes me time to get from one side of the room to the other side of the room and then back again, right? And so if you're doing one of these, you know, and kind of dozing off and just kind of waiting, right? You're wasting a bunch of valuable time, right? Instead, say, hey, Eric, do you know what this part is, right? Ask your neighbor, right? Do you know what we should be doing here, right? Do that kind of a thing, okay? Don't just rely on me to get to you, because your neighbor might know. It might not, in which case you're all sitting like this, right? We try not to have those happen. We try to make sure that you have some direction, okay? Ask each other about it. There's not as much in terms of resources online as, say, Photoshop, right? You can generally find a solution to Photoshop. Rhino and V-Ray, a little harder to find information, but you can still try, right? I also really suggest that you bring the handbook each day, because you can take notes in the margins and keep track of what, you know, the things that we're talking about, especially in V-Ray, because sometimes I'll go through some settings that might not be in the book, but that are relevant, and you'll want to make little notes of that. All of the work in this class is done under Creative Commons license, which basically means we all share. There's no copyright things. You don't own anything, whatever. If you have an issue with it, you can come talk to me about it. But it's just a way I have to boilerplate cover everything when we do. Okay. Late work policy. If your work is late, right, remember it's due before the start of lecture on the day that it's assigned to be due, right? If you turn it in before the next start of lecture, it's graded down by 10%, right? So it's just one letter grade. You had an A, you get a B, right? If you go more than 4 days, notice we're creeping down into the F range, right? I just have a blanket policy. If you turn it in, you get 50%. Easy, right? I'd rather have you turn it in really late than not at all. So you get 50% if you just turn it in after 4 days late, okay? The truth is, it's a lot better to just turn it in when it's due, even if you don't like it, and to use your regrade to fix it. Okay, so I'd rather have you just turn it in and get a grade. All right. All right, so let's look at some student work. Okay, any questions syllabus-wise? No? Okay. So let's look at some student work. A lot of this will focus on renderings. We do some physical modeling. We'll talk through that when we get there. These initial ones were done before we had network render, so the quality is a little fuzzier than it was. There are a number of pre-made objects that we'll talk about, and there's websites where you can get pre-made objects, so you'll see some repeats of objects that people have used. It's okay to use pre-made objects. Sometimes you have to make things for yourself. But when we get into this V-Ray stuff, a few pre-made objects might make or break a scene. All right? So I'm not like, no, you have to make everything from scratch. Okay? A lot of times you download something and then tweak it a bit to match up with what you're trying to do. Right? And sometimes they have a little bit of extra collage work that's done to enhance it, etc. All right? And so I can pick on some of these things, like certain texture maps aren't quite right, they're a little too big, and that sort of thing. We're going to go through it. The wood in here is pretty well done, the concrete isn't, right? But it gives you a sense. Sometimes people collage in extra things like people and whatever. This class will not cover Photoshop. Some of you have already taken 135, which is fantastic. It's not required, but you'll have some Photoshop skills. Use your Photoshop skills. Nothing wrong with that, okay? If you've never done it, maybe I can convince you when this is done that you should take 135 and take the Photoshop section, in which case you can learn these kinds of techniques, right? But it helps. Notice the bookshelf, right? It's the same bookshelf in both. All right, we'll talk about water rendering. We'll talk about night renderings, lighting, all those sorts of things as well. We'll actually make a light fixture from scratch. That you can basically see nothing. It looks a lot better on my screen. People tend to really like the night renders or the sunsets, right? So I just like to flip through a bunch of them so you can see what people have done in the past. I thought this one was a particularly creative one, through an airplane window. The airplane window was a Photoshop edition, but yeah, it's kind of fun. All right. These we're getting into the network render. You can see the quality here is much cleaner, much sharper, right? We're using a lot more computers to do the rendering, so we get much higher quality in the process. That one you can see absolutely nothing, but it's pretty cool. So there, right? We talk a lot about lighting and how we get the patterns on the wall and that sort of thing. So by the end of this class, you should be able to do these kinds of renderings without a problem. Right? Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and I know I went relatively fast. We'll take a break. We'll take about 15 minutes. If you want to go get a drink or whatever, by all means. And then we'll come back, and I'm going to walk you through. We're actually going to do some Rhino today. So it's not a complete waste of a day. We'll learn some techniques and whatever. I'll walk you through that. Then we'll register for the website, and you'll make your first post. Okay. A lot of you already have accounts, in which case that part is not a problem. But for those of you that don't have it, we'll make sure that you're registered, and we'll make sure that you can make your first post. Okay? So I'll see you in about 15 minutes. Okay, so we're going to get started back up again. The exercise today, 201, is kind of in two parts. The first part is to actually register for the course website if you haven't done so already, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of how the website works and what's on it, etc. And then we'll go into Rhino and we'll actually do some Rhino work. So you have to have been registered so that you can download the file to be able to do the Rhino work, which is exactly why I'm testing to make sure that everybody's registered. That's how I find out. Okay, so if you go to the Digital Tools site, there's and I should have had that up. On the far right side, there's an icon for login, or there's a little text that says login right here. If you click on that login, you'll be taken to a page that looks like this, right? Asking for a username and password. If you've never registered before, you have to get a username and password. So down below that, there's a link for register. You'll want to click on that register link, which will take you to a page that looks very, very similar, but it'll say register for the site. Okay? In your username field, I'd like you to put something related to your name. Okay? If you put, Sexy Daddy 123, I don't know who Sexy Daddy is. So it's kind of challenging for me to, figure out who you are. I mean, you're all so sexy after all. So, but if it's your first name, your last name, it just helps me. Okay, to keep track of you, etc. So go ahead and put your username in there. And then under your email, I'd like it to be your email that you actually use. So not necessarily the school email, but the one that you actually use. What this is going to do is it's going to send you an email that will probably end up in your spam folder. So check your spam folder with your temporary password, which will be a random string of numbers. You'll need that to log in for the first time. Okay. Below that is invitation code, which you'll need to fill out. The invitation is DTFA student. It's written behind me, right, on both sides. So you'll want to type that in as well. And then you go ahead and click on register. And that will then send you an email that you can log in. Once you have that, right, and I'm going to flip over, you'll get to the Digital Tools site. And you'll log in. And when you log in, you'll see that there's a black bar that appears at the top of the page. Okay? If that black bar appears at the top of the page, you've successfully logged in and you have access to your accounts, etc. So from here, I would recommend changing your password into something that is more memorable, right? Not the random string. I have a different lecture that I give about password security, but it's beyond the scope of this class. It's for the other class, so you guys can use your dog's name and 123 or whatever you normally use. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go right up here. It says Digital Tools for Designers and Architects, and then below it is a little drop down for Dashboard. This is the back end of the website. Okay, and for those of you that have done digital tools before, this is second nature to you, but for now, I have to go through it. All right, once you're into the back end, if we come down here on the left side and we click on Profile, right, Profile will take you to a place where you can actually change your password. So if we scroll down here under Profile, there's a place for new password and repeat password. You can type in whatever it is that you want to use as your new password. Okay? Just keep hitting Escape, and it'll let you in. Escape. Maybe move computers. Okay, So I've gone ahead, we've changed our password, etc. We'll come back to the website in a little bit more depth for the actual posting. But in order to do part 2, I need a file. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up. So let me go to the site itself. Right? I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go to Exercises. I'm going to go to Digital Tools for Architects 2, which is 136, which is what you're in. And I'm going to click on Fall 2015. And this will take me to the exercises for today. Today's exercise is 201. The exercises and the lectures and the assignments and everything in this class start with 2, so they're the 200s. Right? Everything for my 135 class, the first one is all the 100s. Right? Doesn't mean that you have to take them in that order. It's a way of keeping things separate. Right? So everything starts with the 2 is yours. So exercise 201, I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And it will take you to the text version of what I just passed out to you. Okay? And so you see that it has the same image on it, etc. Okay? But what we need is we need the actual file. So if I look at part 2, it says please download. And you see on the handout that I gave you, it says please download. Right? But obviously you can't get it from the handout. We need to get it from right here, this file. Okay? So I'm going to right-click on it. And if you have a flash drive, you can go ahead and put your flash drive in. If you don't have a flash drive, we'll just do it off the desktop for today. Right? And I'm going to go ahead and say Save Link As. Maybe. Don't you love it when this stuff doesn't work, right? I've been having trouble with Chrome. Let me give me a second to log in Firefox, and we'll see if that makes a difference.
What is the invitation for the
DTFA student, right there.
capital?
Yeah, all caps. All right, so for whatever reason, it was having trouble in Chrome downloading. I don't know. Stuff happens. So I just flipped over to Firefox, which is why there's multiple browsers on these computers. And so you want to make sure that you right-click on this file and say Save Link As. The reason that I'm asking you to do this instead of starting a new file is because I wanted your renderings to actually turn out good. So I prepped a file that has like a light in it and has some environmental stuff so that your renderings will actually look reasonable. Okay? The tutorial says to create a new file, which you can, of course, do. But in our case, it's a little bit better to go ahead and use this file because your renderings will turn out a little better. I'm just trying to help you guys out a little bit. Okay? So I've saved that to my flash drive, and now it's time to open up Rhino. So let's make those go away. I'm going to go to the Start menu, and I'll go to Rhino 5. And we'll let it go ahead and load up here. All right. I can, in general, I would click on the New tab, and I would pick Large Object Inches as my template, which will just set my units correct for what I'm doing. You can work in feet, but I find it easier to work in inches, and it will still recognize feet, but your default is then in inches. So if you type 2, it's not going to be 2 feet, it's going to be 2 inches. So it's a preference, but generally in this class we're going to be working in either feet or inches. I think large object inches is the right template to use. So you'll go ahead and just click on it, and it will create a nice brand new file for you. It looks like I have a toolbar that we're not going to get into, so I'm going to just close that. And this is then Rhino. Because I downloaded that prep file, I'm going to go ahead and go to File and then Open, and then I'll go to my flash drive and actually open up the file that I just downloaded. This exercise, oh look, I called it 101. It should be 201. I'll go ahead and say Open. All right. Looks virtually the same, right? I just did a few things to make it ready. OK, so let's take a look at Rhino and what it looks like here. We have kind of a normal window at the top where we have our standard menu items, the File menu, the Edit menu, etc. In Rhino, there's usually 2 or maybe 3 ways of accessing a particular command.
right? Almost all the commands are available by the menu structure. It's kind of a long, slow process to get there, but they are there, right? So if I wanted to draw a polyline, I can go to curve and then to polyline, and I can specify what kind, etc. So it's all there, available for me. Or I can use the next thing down, which is called the command line, which is basically text. You see how it says in bold here, command, right? This allows you to type in. And so those of you that have worked in AutoCAD, specifically slightly older versions of AutoCAD, a lot of the commands are the same. So like if I wanted a polyline, if I start to type polyline, you see that it shows up. I can press enter, and then that starts the ability to draw a polyline. Okay? This is the fastest way of interacting with Rhino, right? Is to use the keyboard to actually start typing. And you'll learn the shortcuts, and it ends up being rather fast. It takes time, however, to be comfortable with that. I will, especially in the beginning of class, try hard to flip around and use multiple ways of accessing various commands so that you get exposed to a variety of different methods. Some people like to pick buttons. If you like to pick buttons, those are available right down below. We have standard, which gives you some standard, and then we have a bunch of little tabs that you can jump forward to. Transform, for example, is going to be things like move and mirror and that sort of thing. Okay? The other thing is we have a certain bar that runs down the side here. This toolbar has the most common tools in it. So it has polyline, for example. It has the select tool. We have basic primitive shapes. You'll notice that on these there are also little triangles in a lot of the bottoms, right? Those triangles mean that if I click and hold, I'll get a bigger menu with more shapes to pick from, or more tools to pick from, right? So if I was in polyline and I clicked and held, I could get a bunch of different polyline options. If I was in the circle and I clicked and hold, I get different options for how to create the circle, right? So that's just another way of accessing tools. So if you like to pick your tools based on what the icons look like, you can do it that way, right? So there's a variety of ways of interacting with it, and you will develop your own custom way of interacting with Rhino. And it takes time to get used to it, okay? Generally, the icons are the fastest way in the beginning, right? As you move forward, you're going to end up doing more and more command line or some combination thereof, okay? We also have two custom toolbars here that are for V-Ray specifically. This is the rendering engine plugin that I talked about before. The one with the gold circle with the M in it starts one set. Below that are the lights that we can use. Both of those are going to be for a little bit later in the class. We're not going to worry about those just yet, right? But they are here, and I'll show you a little bit about it today when we work through our object. Okay? On the right side over here, we have our basic properties, which is giving us information right now because we have no object selected about what our viewport looks like, how big is it, what's the camera that we're looking through, etc. We have the ability to switch to a layers window, which tells us what layers are there. In this particular document that I opened, we have a default layer, which is what you're going to be working on. But then I have a layer called scene that's locked that has some background stuff on it to make your rendering turn out a little bit better today. Okay? And we have a few other settings. Display and help we almost never actually look at, but you know it's there if you needed it. Okay? Mostly it's properties and layers. Okay? If we move all the way down to the bottom, right, we have a couple things that are available. You should have a row of checkboxes here that start. It says end, near, point, mid, cent, int, perp, right? Those are what are called object snaps, and it allows you to snap to a specific object in your scene. We'll get into that very heavily next class about how it works, right? If it's not there, I can show you how to get it there. It's supposed to be there on these computers, but it doesn't always happen, okay? Yeah. If it's not there and you want to get it there, we go up to Tools, Object Snap, and check the box for Persistent Object Snap dialog. And I'm not making you memorize that just yet. Okay, you can ask me again. And that'll turn that on if it's not there. We also have a couple other things here. We have something called C-plane. We have an X, Y, and Z. That just charts where exactly we are in space if we were actually looking at it. We have what our units are, which right now are in millimeters, which is a mistake on my part. We're going to have to change that in a second. It shows us what layer we're on, which is called the default layer. Then we have grid snap, ortho, planar, O-snap, smart track, etc. going down here. These are all options that will control how we interact with the screen. And so we'll walk through what those are. For right now, the defaults are just fine. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is switch my units. I apologize, I should have already done this. Right now it says millimeters. Yours probably says millimeters here as well. If you right-click on millimeters, you can go to unit settings. And I can change my model units into inches. And I'll go ahead and say OK. It's going to ask me to scale my model. It makes no difference. Nothing in the scene is such that we need to scale it. So you can say yes or no. It doesn't matter. Okay. So I have my units in inches now, which is good. And we're going to look a little bit more carefully at the center of this screen. So you'll notice that I have 4 kind of views. Right? These are called viewports. I have a top view, I have a front view, I have a right side view, and I have a perspective view. Right? All 4 of these views work together, right, to make up and to let me see my model. Right? Most of the time, the most intuitive way of modeling is in the perspective view, but sometimes you'll appreciate having a top view or a front or a right side view. Okay? We can make one of these views take up the whole space by double-clicking on the name of it. So if, for example, I wanted perspective to take up everything that I see, I can double-click on it, and the perspective view gets big. Right? I could double-click on it, and it'll take me back to the 4 views. I could double-click on top view, and it would take me into the top view. Right? There are also little shortcuts down here at the bottom that let you walk through various views. I never use them, but they're there. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and double-click on where it says perspective here to make this large. And I'm going to look here at my scene a little bit. This is background information. This thing which we can't select is a light that I already put in the scene for us. It'll just help the renderings look a little bit better. And this is basically a piece of ground that's in there. It's just flat. Okay? Both of those have been put in. Okay? So I'm going to zoom in here, kind of right where those 2 pieces cross. And I'm going to go ahead and start with this tutorial in terms of actually building a drawing, okay, or an object. And I apologize, I just looked online and the images didn't come through, so we're going to have to do it without the images. With just the text, I'll have to sort out why that happened. Okay? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the rectangle tool, which is right here. Okay? So it looks like a rectangle with 2 little white dots on either opposite corners. Okay? And so I'm going to click on rectangle corner to corner, right? And I'll move over here into my workspace. And I'm going to type, if we look up here at the command line, it's going to say first corner of rectangle. Right? So this is where do I want it to go. I'm going to type 0, 0, 0 because I want it to be right at this point. Okay? We'll talk at length about coordinate systems next class, so just bear with me, type 0, 0, 0. Right? And I'll go ahead and hit enter, and that'll then start my rectangle. And you can see that I'm now drawing a rectangle. Right? It's constrained to being flat on the ground. So it's not in 3 dimensions. And then I'm going to type 5 feet, 5 feet. Right? So it's 5 with the little apostrophe, and then 5 with the little apostrophe. And so we see it right up here, 5 apostrophe, 5 apostrophe. And when I go ahead and hit enter, it will then, I have to zoom out, sorry. It will then make this rectangle. Yeah?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not seeing like any of this yet.
Take a quick look.
I'm still like
Oh, go ahead and, did you download the file from the website yet?
Oh, no.
Okay, so go to the website and go to the today's exercise, and then you'll download that file.
Oh.
Okay. So if you're having a little bit of trouble and I'm breezing past you, what we'll do is I'm going to finish this. I'm going to walk all the way through it. Then we'll take a break, right, from the lecture part. And I'll come around and I'll help you all individually. And then we'll come back and do a little bit more. Okay? That way people can keep going but don't get too lost. So if you get stuck, don't worry. We'll come back. Right? Okay, so I have this rectangle that's 5 by 5. Actually, how many people have it downloaded and are right where I am? Okay, most of you. So we'll keep going. Okay. All right. So I have a rectangle corner to corner. All right. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rectangular plane. Right. So I'm going to come to this surface. Right. Do you see the surface with it? See how it's kind of blue, right, with 4 dots on the corner? right? That's a surface from 4 corner points. It's not the right one that I want, so I'm going to click and hold. And I'm going to pick this one, right, which is called vertical plane. So it's down and over 3. Okay? So what I'll do is I'll come to this back side, and I'm going to go right here, and I'll come across, and I'll go to right here. Right? Now, I have this little end with a check mark on it, which means it's going to jump right to the end right there. And now it's going to start creating a plane that's going up in this direction. So we'll go ahead and type 5 feet for the distance. And I have to do one more click because I have to tell it whether it's positive or negative. So we'll go positive, and it builds that nice little plane for me. Okay? If you want to orbit around your object, if you right-click instead of left-click, you can orbit around and see what you're looking at. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side here. So I'll click and hold, and I'll go to my vertical plane. If you didn't pick vertical plane, and if instead you picked rectangle corner to corner, rectangular plane corner to corner here, you still have the option of picking vertical. So you see here up at the command line, and I know this is a lot to take in the beginning. Just bear with me. You'll learn it all, right? This is kind of a crash course getting ready for it. Okay? It'll say first corner of plane, or I can pick one of these options. So I have the ability to pick vertical. So if I accidentally pick this instead of a vertical plane to begin with, I can just pick this as an option. Okay? So now I'm going to go from this point to that point, and I'll go up to there. And now I have 2 planes. The very entertaining thing at this stage in the game is this will take you all day today to do. Okay? It's like 5 surfaces. Okay? At the end of the semester, you'll come back and you'll look at this and say, oh my God, this took me a whole day to do. I could do this in about 30 seconds. Right? And that's the nature of this class. It takes a lot in the beginning to get used to it, and then you pick up more and more speed, and before you know it, this stuff is very intuitive. Right? So it may seem a little overwhelming right now. Don't worry about it. Okay? So from here, I'm going to go ahead and draw a diagonal line that goes from this point over to this point. All right? So I'm going to go here to polyline, and I'm going to draw a diagonal from here over to right there. Okay? When I'm done, I'll press Enter on the keyboard because it asks, if I want to keep going, I could. So I have that one line that goes across. Okay? Now I'm going to use the surface from 3 or 4 corner points. So you see that I'm creating these surfaces over and over again. I'm just using different options of the same way of creating a surface. So this time, I'll click just on the tool itself, the 3 or 4 corner points, and I'm going to pick this point, then this point, and then this point. So I'll click this point, and that point. Now, it's asking me, do I want a 4th point? I only want 3, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Enter. Yeah? Do you have this toolbar down here at the bottom? I know it's in my... Is End checked? Check where it says End. Okay, then it'll jump right to that point. All right, well, I'll come around and we'll work through it. Okay? The other thing is this will take you some time to do. As soon as you've done it once, I would recommend doing it again. Right? Repeating the process because you'll learn from it. Okay? So, we've got those. All right? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do one more diagonal here. Actually, we have this point. Sorry, let me just check where I am. Okay, so good. We have the line that I drew here, and we have, let me draw a line at the bottom. So I'll go to polyline, and I'm going to draw from here to there. Right, and I'll hit Enter to be done. And so now I have a line here that'll be highlighted in yellow, and I have a line here that'll be highlighted in yellow. So thus far, we've made all basically flat surfaces. Right? Now I want to make a surface that goes from here to there that's twisted. Okay? So I'm going to use a command called loft. And so I'll click on this surface. I'm going to hold down Shift to select the next line here. There. So I have both of those selected. We see them in yellow. And then I'll go up to surface and then loft. I could type loft. Right? Again, multiple options. And when I do that, you see that it makes this great curving surface for me. Go ahead and say OK. That twists along the edge of that object. Okay? So I now have that piece. And don't worry, I'm going to come back to all of this. Right? And I'll finish off with that surface from 3 or 4 corner points again and do 1, 2, and 3. And I'll hit Enter. And now I have a completely closed shape. Right? That's the shape that we're going for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause where we are. Right? I'm going to come around and I'm going to help a bunch of you. Right? Make sure you're registered. Make sure you have the file, etc. And then we'll come back and I'm going to do the whole thing one more time. Right? And then we'll talk a little bit about the renderings and how you get the outputs. Okay? Okay, so we're going to continue on a little bit. If you got a little lost, don't worry, we'll catch you up. Or if you didn't quite make it, it looks like most of you made it. I'm happy. You seem, as a group, you seem to be picking it up faster than I've had in previous years, so that's good. So I went ahead and I made it. I told you I'd go through it one more time. It wouldn't hurt you guys, now that you've made it, to do it again. Right? It's a relatively simple shape. Shouldn't take too long. So I'm going to start with a rectangle right here. And we'll do it over here somewhere. And I'm going to type at the little at sign, 5 feet, comma 5 feet. We're going to talk through what these mean, right, next class, because there's a coordinate system behind it, and we can use those measurements. But I'll go ahead and hit Enter, which gives me this shape. Then I'm going to draw a vertical plane. So I'm going to click and hold on the planes here and select vertical plane. And I'll go from here to there. And I'm going to go up by 5 feet, so I'll type 5 feet. If you don't have the measurements right, or if it's a little off, it doesn't look like a cube, it's fine. Okay? So I have that. I'll repeat again with my vertical plane. And I'm going to go from this corner to that corner. And again, I can type 5 feet. And it always asks me what direction I want. So I have to make one extra click to either say it's going up or going down. Right? So we want it to be going up. There it is. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and use the polyline tool right here to draw a line from this corner to that corner. And I'll go ahead and hit Enter. Okay. I'm going to do it slightly out of order because a lot of you seem to be liking it in this order, so we'll do it in this order. I'm going to pick polyline. Sorry, there's me using shortcuts. I wasn't supposed to use that. It happens. You can right-click to repeat the last command, so whatever. It gets faster as you go along. Anyway, I'm going to pick the polyline tool, and I'm going to draw a line from here to there. And I'll go ahead and hit Enter when I'm done. Now I'll select this line. Now, this is something that happened to a lot of people that I didn't tell you about. One of the things that Rhino does is very smart when you have multiple objects on top of each other. And right now we don't have that many objects, so it's not too bad to deal with. But it's always helpful because we can choose which object we want. So it brings up this little selection menu because there's objects on top of each other. And we can kind of scroll through, and it'll highlight in this pinkish color which object it is. So we can say, yes, I want the line. Right? And I'll do this again as an illustration. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to pick right on the corner here. And you can see that I can pick either the surface or the curve. Right? If I did this, let me pick none. If I did it right here, right, I'd have 3 options. This curve, the surface, or that surface. You see how it's aware of what objects are around, so it can help me pick. So I want the curve. There it is. So I have this curve in yellow, that curve highlighted in yellow, and I'm going to go up to surface and then loft. Now I have the option, if I didn't want to go to surface and then loft, there is a loft tool. It's 3 over, it's right there. So again, you can click the icon, you can type loft, or you can go to surface and then loft. Okay? And it then builds this shape for me. The options by default are just fine. We'll go with it. And then I'll go ahead and I'll use the surface from 3 or 4 corner points. And I'll do a surface 1, 2, and 3. I'll hit enter, makes that. I'll do a surface from 3 or 4 corner points, and we'll do 1, 2, and 3. I'll go ahead and hit enter. It gives me those 2 surfaces as well. Okay, so that was just practice. Okay, to let me have 2 different shapes, and we'll cover this in far more detail as we go forward. Your question? Okay, we'll talk after. Come on in. All right, so I have those 2 shapes made. Now, what I'm asking you to do for your exercise is I want you to create a rendering of these shapes. Okay, and we have 2 different files that we work with commonly in Rhino. You have the Rhino 3DM file, which is what is your physical model work. Okay, so I can go to File and then Save, and it's going to save my 3DM file. And you can see right here, file successfully written as exercise fall 2015.3dm. That's a Rhino file, right? The other thing is when I do a render, it's going to take these surfaces that are in Rhino, it's going to apply a material to those surfaces, and then I can ultimately save a JPEG of what the photo looks like. Okay? So right now I have loaded in already a default material that's been applied to these materials. You don't know it yet, but it's been applied. And so all I have to do is click on the blue circle with the R in it. Right? And when I do that, it's going to bring up a window. Oh, how nice. Could not obtain a license. Okay, so we're going to, let me just try one thing first. How nice. Okay, so we're going to pause this for just a second, and I'm going to go restart. Okay, so Chuck's going to keep working on how to get the V-Ray license to come up so we can actually do the rendering. In the meantime, we'll just do basically a save of what we're seeing on the screen. It's not nearly as nice as we'd like it to be. And if we can get the V-Ray renderer back up, then we'll do a render. But I want to keep moving on and get you to make your first post and get through the day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little triangle next to where it says perspective. Okay, and I apologize, it's been a while since I did this. We're going to go down to the capture icon here to file. And this is going to let us save a JPEG of what we see on the screen. Okay? And so I'll go ahead and put it on my flash drive. I'm going to call it my name with exercise 201. And I'll go ahead and click save. Okay, and you guys can just put it on the desktop for today, and when you have a flash drive, you'll put it on that instead. If I were to look at it, if I can find it, I named it, where did I put it? I just named it my name, exercise 201. I don't know that I paid attention to where I put it. Oh, it is on my flash drive, sorry. So the image that I get is just the image that I see on my screen. Nothing particularly fancy, but it'll let me actually post something, so that's good. So I have that, it's saved on my flash drive. I'm going to jump over to my web browser, and I'm going to go to, should I log in on the other side? Let me go ahead and log in, sorry. All right, perfect. So for those of you that have never created a post before, I can do it in 2 different ways. I can go to the dashboard, which I will do. And then I can go to Posts. And under the Posts menu here, I have the option to say Add New. Right? I can also, there's an option for All Posts. That just means it's all the posts that I've ever made. For today, we want to Add New. So I'll click on Add New. The other thing is up here at the top, I could save a bunch of steps by just going to New and saying Post. Right? It just jumps us to the new post. All right, so when I get here, right, I have the ability to put in a title. So we'll start with a title. And so generally, I'd say exercise 201 with my name. Okay, and then for today, right, I can type in anything that I want. This works just like Word would work. So I could say, here is my image from today's exercise. Right, I can I can make things underlined, I can bold them, etc. It just works like a word processor. Nothing particularly fancy. But what I really want to do is, on the right side here, I'm going to scroll all the way to the very bottom of the page, and there's something called a featured image in the lower right corner when I scroll down. I'm going to click on Set Featured Image, and when I do that, it's going to let me upload the file that I just saved. So I'll go ahead and go if it's not on Upload Files, I'll make sure I click Upload Files. Then I'll click Select Files, and I'll pick from my flash drive what I just saved, exercise 201. And I'll go ahead and select Open, and you'll see we'll get a little progress bar here, and it's going to upload the file. Give it a little bit of time. And when it's done uploading the file, I'll be able to click on the Set Featured Image blue button here in the lower right corner. All right, there it is. I'll go ahead and click on Set Featured Image. And if we give it a little time, it'll show up right here. There it is. All right. And now I'm going to come up here, and under something called Categories, right, I'm going to say this is Architecture 136, and this is Exercise, here's my exercises, 201. Right, be careful you check exercise 201, not assignment 201, right? Because there's an assignment and an exercise. Today is exercise 201. So these checkboxes help categorize your work. So all the exercise 201s come together, and I'll show you those in just a second. So I have my photo. I have it checked for exercise 201. At that point, I can go ahead and click Publish, right? And when I click Publish, it's essentially like turning in my work, right? So I've now published it. It's giving me a date stamp and a time for when I did it, right? I can also come back and I can make edits to it. If I didn't like something or I made a misspelled word or whatever, I can go back and edit it after the fact. So we'll let it go ahead and publish. You can. The featured image does essentially the same thing. You could do it by Add Media and click Add Featured Image there. It's just two different ways of doing it. I try to keep it simple on the first day. All right, so now it shows as published. Notice it's published on August 17th at 12:01. Right, so I get a time and a date. Its status is published right here, status published. So that's good. I've now turned it in. I can view my post, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the website itself, and I'm going to show you where this shows up now that I've posted it. Now, of course, all of you are working on it, so the website gets slower because everybody's on it once. That's the way it works. First day is always slow. Okay, so if we scroll down here on the main page, right, under student work, look at you guys are already jumping in front of me. I'm already way down the line here, right? As you post, it's going to show up reverse chronologically like this. So the newest one is going to be on the left, and it's going to keep ticking away as more and more people post. Okay, but I can also go right here to student work, right? I can go to Digital Tools for Architects 2. I have to update this, right? This should say Designers, and this should say Architects, not Architects 2. Anyway, 136. I can go to Exercises, and I can go to Exercise 201. And we'll see all of the exercise 201s that people have posted. And this is where the categories become important. So if you didn't check the category for it, it wouldn't show up there. So here's exercise 201. We can see all the ones that have been posted. Right? There's the one I posted. A bunch of you have already posted after me. Right? And we can go backwards, and you can see that last year we were able to get V-Ray to work, so people did some materials on them. And that was the goal today. But anyway, so I have that post done. Okay. Once I have this posted, right, you're free to go. Do make sure you give me the last sheet of your syllabus packet that has a questionnaire about what your interests are and whatever. If you were in my morning class and already did it, you don't have to do it again. Just once is fine. We also have a survey, right, that is for funding that I passed out in the beginning. You should have filled that one out as well. Make sure you bring that to me before you leave today as well. Okay. Make sure you bring your flash drive to class on Wednesday. We're going to need it, okay, because we're going to start storing stuff. I'm trying to think what else. I'm going to check one more time and see if the renderer is up, which it is not, so we can skip that part of it. And I apologize. We'll hopefully have it back up on Wednesday. First day is always a little iffy in terms of how stuff turns out. Okay? Are there any questions? For everybody or for just you? Okay, hold on one second. Let me just stop. You don't have to, not everybody has to hear your...